It's Nerd 30, so come one, come all to the nerdiest show of them all. The Omega Level Nerds are ready to talk nerdy to you. It is Nerd 30, and you are at the Omega Level Nerds podcast. Of course, D Square with you. Along with me today is Mr. Todd Matthy. He is, of course, creator, writer of Robots vs. Princesses Disciple, which is a Kickstarter that we will start talking about today. And fine fella, how are you doing, Todd?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. It is Friday, and my day job is an M through F gig, so that means Friday's always good. So thank you so much for asking. And I do very much appreciate you coming on the show today. You, of course, have a Kickstarter right now, and I will have that link in the description on both the video and the Podbean podcast there. It is called Disciple, and so tell us about that. Tell us about Disciple and your Kickstarter.
Well, it's about a professional wrestler named Jesse Sampson who, he's just been called up to the CWC, which is our equivalent of WWE, their main roster, and his girlfriend Claire breaks up with him for another guy because he's going to be on the road. He gets angry, and what happens is she's a museum exhibitionist, and she has this mysterious statue of Mars. Jesse's visited in a dream by Mars, who grants him the ability to manipulate emotions, particularly anger, if he agrees to be his disciple and spread his word as a wrestler. So Jesse agrees and takes on the God of War persona, and as the story goes on, he uses the ability that was granted to him to get himself more over. And the more over he gets, the more powerful Mars becomes. And what will happen is that Jesse's fans start attacking other people. Like, their prejudices will start acting out. And comes a question of, is Jesse responsible for this? But it's Mars because he wants conflict because he's a god of war.
Yep.
And it all is going to build towards what's going to happen at a show in Yankee Stadium. And that's the general direction. Plus also his reunion with Claire and meeting the guy. What we're trying to do is fund the first issue. Once that's funded, we're going to try to get additional pages, which will be a continuation of the story, and then we'll move forward from there to see where we need to go to finally finish it.
Yeah, that's great, and I really think that the premise is really cool. Now, obviously, this is a comic book Marvel podcast, but I will tell you that although I may not follow wrestling today, I was definitely that kid where all the family was gathered around the TV for WrestleMania 3. We couldn't believe that Hulk Hogan had body slammed Andre the Giant. So I can remember it really being a family event. And one of the things that really always attracted me to wrestling was those characters, those almost mythic characters. Obviously, I know he's not real popular today because of certain statements, but my favorite wrestler of all time is going to be The Undertaker. Again, not because of the personal beliefs of Mark Calloway, but the character in itself. I can still remember the Survivor Series where Brother Love brings out The Undertaker. And at that time, I'm like 10, 11, what have you. So I'm really thinking like, oh my God, there's this like undead, unstoppable wrestler. Obviously, yeah, it was, I mean, absolutely great. And, obviously he moves away from Brother Love and they go to the pallbearer and the urn, giving him the power. I was just always into that. And even outside of The Undertaker, Ultimate Warrior, again, I know Vince gets a lot of flack for the muscle-bound wrestlers, but honestly, that is one thing that attracted me to wrestling, is that they looked like superheroes from comics.
Yeah, no, I mean their comic characters come to life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But anyway, but going beyond that, my favorite storyline ever that was in wrestling was the Undertaker and Kane stuff. Uh,
Oh, that's throwaway.
yeah, I just I loved it. I
So you know,
actually, yeah, I mean I was into wrestling. I mean I live near Cleveland. We used to go to all the Raws and the pay-per-views.
mhm,
Back then it was Gund Arena. What made me fall out of wrestling, I guess, is again, I'm attracted by the stories, the characters, those mythical characters, and we did see them give way. Instead of Kane and The Undertaker and Yokozuna, we're hearing about The Miz and Sami Zayn, and so it had more of a realistic feel to me that honestly, I couldn't follow. But your book, why I
mhm,
say all that, is that
mhm.
your book definitely reminded me of the more a mythical side. I think it's a really cool angle that you have there, where you've got this wrestler and he's using the powers of a god basically to get over, or at least to get heat in this instance, because he is
Mhm.
manipulating the emotions of the crowd. So I just thought that was really cool. It really scratches my itch as far as that mysticism side. Undertaker, Kane, everyone knows Batista, of course, but before he was Batista, he was Leviathan. The protector of the
Oh,
gates of
you're an
hell.
AEW guy.
Yeah, that's just the sort of shit I dig. So that was definitely the vibes I was getting from Disciple here. So I thought that was really, really, really cool. So I definitely hope that you get a lot of success there. What made you come up with that idea?
Well, what happened? A couple of things that happened was, it was around the time when Robots versus Princesses was coming out, and forces many things is that I kind of had a breakup with
Mm-hmm.
someone that I cared about, and obviously you're upset about it,
Sure.
and yeah, I mean, and basically, I just wanted to smash my problems, and I was listening to Motorhead and Orgasm
Okay.
up, and I just saw this image, because I mean there was that line, "Your bones will build my palaces, your eyes will stud my crown. For
Yeah,
I am Mars, the god of war, and I will cut you down." I just saw a wrestler coming out to that tune,
for
in a
sure.
similar situation, and when you hear that song, someone's coming out to kill,
Yeah,
and and then I was just like, "Whoa, all right." I'm like, "Wait a minute, you know what? Just write about it." And I just started writing about it. One thing I wanted to do definitely was to keep Claire's world and Jesse's world separate. I did not want them to be involved with. I did not want her involved with wrestling.
mm-hmm.
I mean, she knows them, but one of the things about it is it's not really her world. I really tried to. I did not want to do like the whole like fairy tale, make it be like a fairy tale type thing, or like
Mm-hmm.
the way it happens in the movies. I wanted like this to be like a realistic thing, worth like based around real emotion,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to spoil things, but
Yeah.
the course I'm taking with it is more of what would actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
What happens more often than what you see in the movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, I would say 99.9% of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I like about this, and I was talking to JD last week on the show about his, he had a wrestling centric storyline that basically made it almost all the way to the finish line until the publisher of DC at the time just said, "Oh, I don't get wrestling, so no." And what I was telling him is that it really seems like this sort of genre is gaining a lot of steam right now as far as sports drama. I know it's big in Japan, a
Mhm.
lot of boxing drama, wrestling stuff in Japan. And of course, what happens over there eventually filters over to the Western world and gets popular over here. So I really like the timing of the story you're telling, because I think the sports drama in the Western world now is really gaining steam. So I could really see a lot of people latching onto this. So hopefully you do get more exposure. That way, you can not only fund issue number one, which you're pretty close to doing, but continuing to go forward, because I think again, this sort of mystic drama in the wrestling world, melded together with just the real side of it, really makes for an interesting story. Uh, I obviously review comics. I don't know how obvious it
Hmm.
is, but for superheroespeak.com. And I
Okay.
can remember like a year and a half ago, he had a Undertaker WWE comic, and I was
I
really
had that
excited.
comic.
Yeah, I was really excited. I was like, "Oh, right, okay,
Chaos.
cool."
Yeah.
And I was honestly a little let down because it wasn't about the mystic side of the Undertaker. It was really more of a realistic thing. So, again, I think this is great, and I definitely hope that you get funded here, and we'll do our part. We'll put the link in the description and all of that jazz. But let me ask you, so understanding what motivated you to do this story, and obviously you're a wrestling guy. Right now,
Mhm.
you're watching a Ring of Honor wrestling event. How did you hook up with the artist? What made you choose the artist?
Well, what happened with my current artist Jordan was my original artist Martin. When we made it, to pitch it around, he was able to do it, but of course, time, pandemic, everything,
Mm-hmm.
got in the way, and he, went on to do. He's doing another gig. I think he's going to be launching something soon. There's no hard feelings
Mm-hmm.
about it. He just, he had something that was ready to move, and I didn't at the time.
Yeah.
And then I went and I was at a Creator AfterCon at New York Comic Con, and I met Jordan, and he, I saw his samples, and I was like, "Whoa!" And I just started talking with him, and I was just like, he told me he was doing like a wrestling comic. I'm like, you know what? I need you to come with me and do this one. Through
Yeah.
him, I met the new colorist, Vlad, and we've been going ever since. We're in constant communication, which is very good.
Yeah.
Between collaborators, and I mean, like, there's some pages he wants to draw in the future, so hopefully we can not only get it funded, because I think there's a scene he wants to draw very much so, and it would be coming up. It would be like one of the first scenes in the second issue, which would be like a bonus page, some bonus pages.
Mm. Yeah, I also see you're doing some variant covers too, which is nice. I always love seeing that. And so when it comes to this particular story here, then, so I'm assuming, I mean, again, we're talking about the Kickstarter for issue number one. You mentioned issue
Mhm.
number two. So are you all the way planned out to the conclusion of the story at this point?
All the scripts are written.
Okay.
It's written. I just wrote at a breakneck pace. I just
Mm-hmm.
had to get the story out, and then, like, I figured, all right, let the wind, take it. But at least, you know what, those scripts are done. It's been workshopped in. I workshopped it in the Comics Experience workshop. That's very useful. Really helps you get your story, down to the
Mm-hmm.
essentials, because that's one of the hardest things about comics is the limited space, pacing, so that everything can breathe,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get as much into an issue as you can. I think I've done a good job of, making a kind of like meaty comic where, like, when you read it, you're gonna get, more than, like an average issue of like
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man or something like that. In terms of content and story.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. Sometimes I feel that aspect is a little bit lost, especially as a comic reviewer. I mean, obviously, I have my pull list. I'm a X-Men fan, So, I stay with the X-Men, but as a comic reviewer, a lot of the times I have to dive into a series, at
Yeah.
issue 3, or 4. And
Hmm.
so it really does help my scores because I obviously understand, being a longtime comic fan, that you need the 4 or 5 issues to get the whole story. But at the
Yeah.
same time,
Coming in the
com
middle.
right, you do need to have some sort of ability to come into the middle. So, I absolutely agree. That's a good strategy on your part. Again, because issue number 1 is not always somebody's first, and you got to
Right.
get them a good diving in point. Okay, awesome stuff.
Yeah, I try to make each issue. There's like time jumps in each issue, so that would make it easy for somebody to get in
Mm-hmm.
for rather than like just be lost in the shuffle. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
um, and obviously, worst comes to worst, we do the recap pages. I'm just gonna refuel.
Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, I mean, like I hear what you're going with, and especially when it comes to the X-Men, because I'm a huge X-Men fan too. Um, Out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on Hickman not really being able to finish what he started?
Oh boy, you're gonna like that match. Okay.
All right.
Um so I so I'm a longtime X-Men reader. I mean, obviously there was a hole there, but I got back in when we did the Avengers vs. X-Men stuff. So, but yeah, I had to live through that whole, like, Fox owned the X-Men movies, so
Oh,
Marvel was trying to destroy the X-Men in the
oh,
comics.
that made me stop.
Yeah.
That made me stop reading X-Men because it was so. And let me give you that whole. Oh, I'm gonna bring the guys from the past up into the
Yeah.
present. I hated that premise.
Yeah.
Hated it. If I was editor in chief, I would have said to Bendis, "No, we're not doing this."
Yeah.
Because you know what? Oh, you're gonna bring them to the future. You're gonna bring guys from the past to the future and have them do superhero missions. Oh, gee, what would happen if they get killed? Say goodbye to the time stream.
Yeah.
It,
You're right. That was really not a great move, because in the end they're like, they didn't even know what to do. They had to have, like, Cable come along and kill him, if I'm remembering correctly, or send him back. Or no, he refused to send him back. That's why the young Cable. Okay, I'm getting in the weeds. All right, we're talking about
yeah,
Cable. That's not something I should
yeah.
really dive into. Uh, but
Try again.
so
My friends, we're talking about. If this is just an aside about
yeah,
Cable, my friends they remembered like what he looked like, from the cards and like the show. But I'm like, yeah, explaining Cable to people that don't follow comics, I'm like, oh boy, is that something? And just for fun, like my friends like had me explain it. They're like, and I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm a comic book nerd.
yeah. No, you're right. You got to stay away from that. I know JD Oliva, who of course was on the show last week. He says it's really hard to explain some DC continuity to his friends, because then he has to mention the Superboy Prime punching reality, and it's like, yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. With the X-Men. Let's not even get into Psylocke. But to your question, so how do I like the Hickman stuff? So we went through the whole, like, X-Men extinction phase, and then so here comes Hickman. And so that is very exciting. The House of X, the Powers of 10 stuff is awesome. I was very much into, okay, great, the X-Men aren't losing anymore. This is wonderful.
They're
They're not
winning.
good. Yeah, they're winning. They've won. They're immortal at this point. That's great. The whole Moira McTaggart being a mutant, and basically being a mutant that controls basically the universe at this point, because whenever she dies, she reincarnates and the universe sets. I was into all that. But yeah, I'm really disappointed. Again, I still have a pool list of X-Men, so I'm still in it. But it's really disappointing that Hickman had a story to tell, but then the editor, Jordan White, and the team of writers that he has, and I throw no aspersions at them, I think they're good, but they said, okay, we want to we don't want to progress Hickman's story. We want to live in the sandbox for a while. We really like it.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, with that said, then yeah, I mean, Hickman kind of checks out. You can totally tell, by the way, in reading these things. Even the mainline X-Men story is just disjointed at best. So yeah, I do not appreciate the fact that they brought in this whole House of 10, Powers of X, or I'm sorry, I just messed it up, but nonetheless, Hickman's going to be the head of X here, and we're going to go with this story, and then for them to decide, you know what, we don't want the story to progress, we want to kind of stay right here, which then makes Hickman say, okay, let me just finish up this Inferno story, and I'll be on my way. So I don't have high opinions of it whatsoever. I'm very, very disappointed. I debated 8-Bit Ray on Superhero Speak. I was for Hickman. He was against Hickman. And in the end, 8-Bit Ray was right. Hickman just kind of came in. Big Dick Hickman did all. And then, adios. The only thing is, there's a teensy bit of it that's not his fault. Because Jordan White and the writer said, hey, we don't want your story to progress. We want to play in this sandbox in a while. So I can kind of see that being the catalyst for him losing interest. But his fault or not, very disappointing. I'll be completely honest with you.
I agree. And, I mean, I also felt like his main X title really lost steam, especially with that Ten of Swords storyline.
Oh,
which it kept contradicting itself, and I'm just like, I'm like, all right, just with Arako Kreka, I'm like, let's just move on this. But and I wanted to see more of like the world, like the customs, like the thing where you had to go through Apocalypse, get resurrected,
the Crucible, right?
The Crucible. I'm like, those are cool. What is going on with Xavier? This is a little odd,
I'm still convinced he's got something to do with the Maker. That's just me. The evil Reed Richards.
And, what I think looking and thinking about what they should have done is have Hickman write up whatever his next steps were.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just be like, all right, we'll adjust it, while we're playing in this playground. But and let them play. But then when they reach a certain point, kind of like in a TV show, like, major episodes written by the guy who created the show.
Yeah.
And finally, at certain points, you're just like, all right, boom, here's this part. And, you go on, play, let the guys do whatever they need to do, get out whatever they need to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, the next part. And then finally we get to however this is going to conclude, because the thing that I found most exciting, I'm like, we all know the status quo always comes back, and I'm like,
yeah,
how are they gonna go back to the status quo after this?
Yeah, I really don't know, because they're like, okay, you got Krakoa, and like you said, then we get into the Rocco shit. Now they've colonized Mars.
Yeah, like, you're putting the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. It's like, how do we get this genie back in the bottle? We'll see.
Really the next step, because Morrison was trying to take the next step before they stopped. I don't remember them's. They kind of undid everything they did.
Well, yeah, they had Hickman's, believe it or not, Secret Wars, which could have reset everything, but they didn't do it. They just kind of skipped 6 months and then said, boom, Marvel now. Hey, look at this. This is where we're at. I'm not going to tell you how we got here, but this is where we're at.
And I actually liked Hickman's Secret Wars. I thought that was actually very fun.
You know what I appreciated about it? That it was a good Fantastic Four story in the middle of them trying to destroy the Fantastic Four. I just don't appreciate how do we get from, okay, Reed Richards, Valeria, and Franklin, they're sitting back, they're creating all this universes, and then boom, Oh, here we are. We don't know what happened the last 6 months, but here we are. That's the only thing, and that's got nothing to do with the actual event. That's after the event. So I don't think they stuck the landing, I guess. I don't know, to that. But the story itself, it was cool, and I just think it's funny though because I have that series, and it's like the first three issues are like 1 out of 8, 2 out of 8, 3 out of 8, and then like it's issue 4 or 5, it's like 5 out of 9. It's like
Yeah, they needed that extra issue, and then yeah, and yeah, when they had the whole spat with Fox, and it was
well, and that's why I can't stomach the Inhumans because they tried to replace the X-Men with the Inhumans, and I'm like, no, no, no.
it's like it's two different things.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Mm-hmm.
send Sentinels after the Inhumans, Black Bolt will show up on the president's lawn.
Yeah.
Say, am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
Just go, fuck you. And boom, the White House would collapse. And he'd be like, all right, next, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
boom. I mean, like, the Inhumans find themselves above us. They don't want to be treated the same. They are above. You are above. And they find themselves superior. They aren't oppressed because they will not let themselves be oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to do that with the Inhumans. They tried to make them the X-Men, and it's like, no. A, the characters aren't as intriguing.
Right.
B, it's like royal family drama,
Mm-hmm.
See, how many times can Maximus try to like overthrow Black Bolt?
Right.
I mean, B, they have slaves.
Yep. That's
With the alpha primitives,
right.
Don't think. I mean, all right, they're not slaves technically, but it's like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
you live underground. I mean, it's like we don't want you coming above a certain area, Yeah,
Right.
pretty much, So
Yeah.
yeah, you have that. It's not the same thing, and it's more. They're more like a Game of Thrones type thing,
Absolutely.
and it just trying to make the mutants, the X-Men, the bad guys. It just was. It was a giant mess. It's probably the reason why that show failed.
Yeah. Well,
The
yeah. Taking Medusa and shaving her head in like the second episode, that's yeah, that kind of takes away her muster. And then yeah, like you're saying, they kind of have slaves, so like Maximus the Mad kind of had a point, at least in the show. Like you couldn't see, you understood his point there.
and then
Uh,
the Jenkins and Jay Lee, which is the gold standard of Inhumans
yeah,
to me.
yeah. And then you had the X-Men versus Inhumans event, which the Inhumans, in my eyes, and I'm biased, obviously, but they had no leg to stand on. Like Terrigen Mist was killing mutants. How do you like? You just expected them to sit there with a smile on their face, like
Yeah, it's
you're
like
gonna
what?
you're gonna catch smoke, and they certainly did because, like in the opening salvo, you mentioned Black Bolt. The opening salvo of that story was Emma Frost going in to talk to Black Bolt. And then at some point, Black Bolt's like, I don't need to listen to this shit. I'm going to just blast this bitch. But then it turns out it's not Emma Frost, it's Dazzler. So he blasts Dazzler, who's like, oh, all this sound, whatever shall I do? Boom! And fuck it. Fucking X-Men captured Black Bolt in the first salvo. Uh, Interesting story, but yeah, it's like how are they going to sell the Inhumans by killing the X-Men? Thankfully, fast forward a little bit, Disney now has the Fox X-Men, and here we are. We're in the era of Hickmen. They're multiplying. They're immortal. There's a strange
Yeah,
menage a trois thing going on between Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean Grey, but
might as well
whatever,
throw
that's
Emma in
cool.
there.
Jubilee's son turns into a dragon when he's in Otherworld. Okay, cool. All right, all right. Finally, my boy Colossus, saying he's my favorite X-Men. He's on the Quiet Council, so I enjoy that. We'll see how that goes. What's your favorite X-Men? Just popped into my head there. You got a favorite X-Men? X-Man?
Yes, I think we've always, I've always, I guess we've always, I'd say Wolverine, but outside of that, Gambit.
Okay, Gambit. Yep, very, very popular character.
I think Gambit kind of, for a while, they kind of put him on the sidelines, and I feel like a bit. I'm just like, no, Gambit is supposed to be cool.
Yeah.
You know what? He's calm, he's collected, he's confident, and he goes in there and he gets things done, and he's smooth. Being like when he was putting the
Yep.
moves on Rogue, he was a smooth guy. But he had also a past, the whole things with the guilds and
Helping the Marauders with the Murlocs. That was another.
yeah,
The Mutant
yeah, that was
Massacre.
the Mutant Massacre. Belladonna, his whole history with Belladonna.
Mm-hmm.
The Rogue romance. I mean, I think they were going to tie him into the Summers family, but I mean, they dropped
Yeah.
that. I don't know why they didn't go with Extreme. That's like the one thing I disagree with Brubaker on, but
Okay.
Vulcan was
Yeah. He's the third Summers.
third Summers brother. I mean, I guess you could still have and I guess they told the story with Adam X. You could still do that with whatever was happening, but
Adam X, 90s incarnate.
yep. It's a back baseball cap. I'm like, all right.
The spikes and the yeah.
It was the style at the time.
It was. I remember it. I remember it well. It's funny that you mentioned Gambit and him being smooth because again we talk about the Hickman era, and good thing is, so Colossus and Kitty Pryde were going to get married, and then Kitty Pryde flakes out and decides she doesn't want to do that. So Rogue and Gambit take advantage of the situation and say, "Hey, we'll get married." So one cool thing is that Rogue can now control her powers to a point to where, her and Gambit can and have physical touch without. But he's not as calm as he was. I remember in the Dawn of Excalibur, I don't have it on my pull list anymore, but he was really stressing out about Rogue and Apocalypse working together. So it's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah, he's cool, calm, and collected, but yeah, we've had some mischaracterization in those Excalibur pages. So
just the fact that but then again, Apocalypse's presence,
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, he's been around for thousands of years. He really hasn't done much.
No, I mean, what, he fought the X-Men, and then at some point it's like, oh, okay, you guys have accepted that you're better than everybody. Okay, we're cool now.
Yeah.
Oh, and I had a wife back in Morocco, and so yeah, the X of Sword things happened, and then poof, he's gone.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see if they'll bring him back in any sort of capacity.
I can see him coming back, I mean, remember, he is a genocidal maniac.
Yes.
It's like, so yeah, I can see him and Araco pulling some shenanigans, I guess. Maybe that would have been the way out.
Yeah.
He goes and pulls his thing, and then, all out mutant war. Then, maybe we could speculate all we want.
All day. You never know how they're going to go. But definitely appreciate the X-Men talk. That's that fishing lure will get me every time.
Yep.
But hey, let's I actually want to play a little game with you here. I hope you don't mind. Before we wrap her up, let's have a little fun. Of course, earlier this week, the world was aghast by what many called was this slap heard around the world. Yeah, and that is, of course, during the Oscars, Chris Rock made a joke, a G.I. Jane joke, about Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett, because she has no hair, and yeah, as it turns out, it's due to a medical condition. But he made a GI Jane 2 joke, and Will Smith proceeded to walk up stage and smack Chris Rock. So, with that in mind, and we're actually not going to talk about that because it's been talked about, till the cows come
Yeah.
home. Yeah, but I want to play a game. I'm going to give you 5 scenarios, 5 comic slap scenarios, and you can just tell me which one you think is real, okay? Or not which one, but I'll give you the 5 scenarios, and you tell me which one's real and which one's fake.
Has it happened, or
Yeah, like, did this happen, or am I just making it up? So
okay.
I will tell you ahead of time, 3 out of the 5 scenarios I give you are going to be real. So the first scenario that I give you is Charles Xavier slaps Kitty Pryde for calling him a jerk. Do you think that's a real comic slap, or am I making that up?
You're making it up. I don't recall him slapping her.
He does not. He is a major dirtbag. Xavier, he is a jerk, but right, he did not slap Kitty Pryde. Okay, good. That's a warm up. Here's the next one. And for those of you on video, the real ones, I will show you the picture. So, Reed Richards smacks Sue Storm. Do you think that's real or fake?
I can see it happening in the earlier issues, yes.
Okay, and you got it.
Maybe.
Yep, it's definitely real. Again, for those of you on video there. So, one of the most infamous panels of Reed Richards in this comic book history is basically Sue Richards is manipulated by the villainous Psycho Man to turn all her thoughts of love for her family into hate. So in order to facilitate this, Reed Richards smacks her. And so yeah, that actually did happen. Controversial moment. And yeah. So I mean, I get it. She was possessed by a villain, but do you have to hate your wife to make her hate you? I mean, can't you just say something like, "Hey, all that stuff that you don't use, I threw it away," or maybe call her a cunt? I mean, that's going to upset most everybody, particularly women, and for good reason. So not particularly necessary, but yeah, Reed Richards did slap Sue. Okay. This next one is going to give me a gimme. I'm just going to mention it. It's, of course, when Batman slaps Robin. That is real. That is real. Probably the most famous of our entries. Although I think,
if you go and look at those, so my comic guy, I remember when the Batman and the Golden Age trade paperbacks came out. He's just like, they were when Batman was accused of being like a child molester, back in the 50s. He's like, yeah, you knew it wasn't true, but some of those comics where he's like putting Robin over his knee and spanking him, he certainly gave you that impression. He's like, I can see why.
Yeah, you definitely can see why. But of course, this famous image is ripped from the pages of World's Finest Comics, number 153, released in 1965. The story of DC's imaginary novels, basically a what-if story, finds Batman and Superman as mortal enemies. Thomas Wayne is still alive in this tale and has just created a cure for green kryptonite. A young Bruce Wayne is thrilled when Superboy arrives and asks for the serum, anticipating attack from Lex Luthor, but Wayne says he hasn't done enough testing, and Superboy, frustrated, flies off. That night, Bruce Wayne finds his father dead in his lab and the serum missing. All he sees of the killer is a streak of red and blue as he flies out of the window with super speed. This event, and not a mugging in Crime Alley, is what leads to Bruce Wayne to dedicate his life to fighting crime and bring kryptonite to justice. Let's see, the year passes as Bruce Wayne trains himself to become Batman, blah, blah, blah. But basically, the panel reads, "Don't tell me I'm wrong, you brat," because Robin did not believe Superman killed his parents, and so for that, he earns a smack. All right. So the next scenario I got for you, sir, is Iron Man, Tony Stark, in a drunken stupor, slaps Pepper Potts. Do you think that ever happens? in the comics?
I actually don't think it did.
It did not. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
That one is fake. So the last one we have here that is real, and that of course is Hank Pym.
I called
You
it.
got it. Yeah, it is a very controversial. Hank Pym slapping his wife Janet Van Dyne in a shocking moment, and the reason
I
why
think he.
what's that?
Yeah, it's like his defining moment.
Well, you know what? I'm pretty sure. Now, I've never gotten this, hardcore proven, but I'm pretty sure this is the reason why we have a Scott Lang Ant-Man and not a Hank Pym. I know Hank Pym is in the MCU,
Yeah.
as a crotchety old man, and it works.
Yeah.
He is an a-hole.
I've heard the Wasp, so.
Yeah. But I definitely think this is one of the main reasons why we never got or at least we didn't start with a Hank Pym Ant-Man, why they kind of skipped over him, dealt with him in flashbacks, and we've got the Scott Lang. And again, that's because Hank Pym in the comics ain't. He's kind of a dick.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is every time when it's settled, a new writer keeps going back to it.
Yeah.
It's like, we settled this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's move on.
Let's move on. It's tough, though. It's tough.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate really talking to you about your Kickstarter. It sounds great. I really do hope. Again, the description is going to be in, or the link is going to be in the description here, and we'll continue to support that on Twitter. Again, that's going to name is Disciple, and really really cool melding of mysticism and the gritty behind the scenes of the wrestling world. So I definitely encourage everyone to check that out. You have it's like 10 pages of it already that you're basically letting people check out. So, I mean, you can get a really good idea of the story.
Yeah, and
Did you mean to give him? I see the picture there. Looks like he's doing a little razor's edge. Is that just coincidence?
I decided that would be. I was trying to think of a finishing maneuver, so yeah, I decided on Razor's Edge. It's a good image.
Yeah.
It's called the Killer, but I mean, because obviously I can't call it what it is, but
Yeah.
I thought it was great. It's recognizable, and I think we all met. Rest in peace, Scott. And we all, remember Razor Ramon,
Mm-hmm.
and that was his finisher.
Mm-hmm.
And about a guy who was cool,
Oh yeah.
he and Gambit would probably get along.
Yeah, absolutely. I just don't know. Speaking of Razor Ramon, I just don't know about the toothpick. I'm kind of a germ phobe, I guess. I'd hate to be the guy that he just throws it at, but whatever.
Yeah,
It looked cool though. It was like the
Oh,
ultimate
great.
insult, ultimate way to
Yeah.
get heat. So
I remember at WrestleMania 9, he was fighting Backlund. Backlund goes to shake his hand, and he just flicks that toothpick.
Yeah, rest in peace for sure. What a great talent we lost. But great sense of humor guy. I kind of like ICP. I'm kind of an ICP guy, and he hung out with them a little bit and did some videos and stuff that I watched, and it was always really cool. He always had a great sense of humor, so we definitely lost a good one there. But yeah. So I was definitely recognizable finishing move there in your comic. So I thought that was cool, very timely. I'm sure it's coincidence. I'm sure you worked all that out beforehand.
Yeah,
But nonetheless, cool.
Yeah, but you will see homages to the NWO in there.
Okay, all right.
All right. I mean, you will see. You're gonna see some gimmicks.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna see you'll basically see how angles get laid out, and you'll see in-ring action play out with commentary, and No, it was a lot of fun coming up with the angles,
Yeah.
for characters like the Love Warlock and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, um it's just overall, but I mean, like, one of the things I want to emphasize with it is that Jesse's attitude is like the one of those guys, that he may not be able to make you think wrestling's real, but he can make you think he's real.
Yeah. That's
That's like
awesome.
just pretty. And that's what I think a lot of the guys did back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I absolutely. I can remember, like I mentioned, The Undertaker, I can remember actually thinking like, oh my God, is this like a dead guy wrestling? It was a really cool gimmick. But even, I mentioned Undertaker, but even, Papa Shango, all the Mystic, types, Giant Kamala, stuff like that. So, but yeah, I just, again, it makes total sense. The God of War, uh, you know, reminds me a lot of the Juggernaut, Demon of Sidorak, gives him his power. Well, this guy's getting his power. Or again, the ability to manipulate the emotions, which in the wrestling world is going
What
to
they did.
be huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Good stuff, man. Good premise. Good on you, man. Um, all right. Well, outside of that, appreciate the X-Men talk. I always enjoy that as I'm pretty obsessed and good job. You picked out both fake slap scenarios, so you know your stuff there.
Yeah.
Um, I,
I mean, there's always the famous Lois Lane when she slaps the goon and then
yeah.
slaps Clark Kent in the first issue of Action Comics for being a
Yeah, that
milksop.
that was a good one. And my next door neighbor, who's probably going to end up joining me on this podcast, he's a big Spawn guy. He's like the only
Mhm.
Spawn guy I know. So, but anyway, he was like, "Oh, when Spawn slapped God and Satan," I'm like, okay. That's a little. The comic went in the deep end, and yeah, that's a little much. But nonetheless, it's cool. So you got to respect Spawn slapping God and Satan. That is a cool premise. Um, Todd McFarlane got in a little heat, but we'll save that for another day.
Tom
Uh,
McFarlane always gets
he
it.
he does, but because I'm not even like a McFarlane fanboy. I'm actually not that in. He's cool. He's good. I'm not gonna do anything disparaging, but I'm not a fanboy. But he definitely is not. He did not say. I guess I'll just say this. He did not say that if you buy girl action figures that you're possessed by the devil. He just used a metaphor. So, in fact, I think his latest toy line had a female in it. So, just pump the brakes
Oh,
on
I
that.
mean, I remember the Angela toy. Didn't leave much imagination. It
Right.
was,
That's this McFarlane art for you for sure.
yeah, it
Uh,
was, but
it's the way it
no,
was. It's the way it
honestly,
is.
what I heard, it was just like he just mentioned a debate that's been going on for a while. That I mean, like now I don't know, like yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I really I don't know girls' buying habits now. I know they like
Yeah.
Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
That's what I see. I mean, Attack on Titan's huge, and like
Sure.
with the fifth graders and fourth graders in the school I teach at. So you know, like I know they like that, but I mean, I don't know if they buy like toys of it. I mean, but
Yeah. I mean, not from what I've seen. You see, when you go into a place and you see some Marvel toys on a clearance rack, it's mostly the female characters. So I don't really think that the female fans are buying in the numbers that the male are, and that's just I don't. That's just numbers. The guy.
first thing, yeah.
Yeah, the guy's just going off of metrics, and I'm not gonna say all, but most 9, 10-year-old boys, if you bring home a girl action figure, they're gonna be a little disappointed. But again, I'm just here to defend him and give credit where credit's due. He didn't say if you buy a girl action
Yeah,
figure that you're a serial killer. He just said if you were a 9-year-old boy who knew that all these other figures were there and your parents decided to bring home a girl figure, that he imagined, I'm paraphrasing, that would be the origin story for a serial killer. That's it. That's all. So
I mean, that's a little extreme, but hey, I got the Janine figure from Ghostbusters, and I wasn't disappointed. I mean,
right, exactly. I know plenty of boys that had She-Ra. I get it. It's okay.
Yeah, as long as it's not like my size Barbie, as then I think there's other intentions.
Right, exactly.
That one, but
All right, well, Mr. Todd Matthy, other than the Kickstarter, again, which we will include that link in our description, where else can we find you, sir?
You can find me on Twitter at Todd C. Matthy, and you can sign up for my mailing list at toddmatthy.com, just my name. And then I have an author page on Facebook, and I'm just around. So.
When I come around, absolutely. It's a good Green Day song. All right, sir. Well, thank you so very much for joining us on the Omega Level Nerds. Anytime, open invitation. You just let me know when you want to come talk about something, and we'll make it happen, Captain. Thank you so much. And for those of you listening, of course, follow the show. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're a joy to have. Love
you're
talking.
Frozen.
Am I frozen? Oh, we'll edit this out. All right, well, we'll go ahead and end it there, and just quickly go to Twitter at Omega Level Nerds. Follow us there, and you can get the link to the YouTube profile there as well, so you can see the video version of this, of course, on Podbean and Apple Podcast app. Thank you so much. Peace and love, and we'll talk to you again soon.